The helicopter is 30 seconds from the compound, and the pilot just called out 2 technical vehicles on the eastern wall. Your team lead says nothing. He checks his rifle one more time. You do the same. The cabin smells like hydraulic fluid and neoprene. The rotors don't let you hear yourself think, which is fine, because thinking right now is not the task. The task is the door. The task is the threshold. The task is the next 30 seconds. You will learn much later that this is the condition they are selecting for. Not bravery, not aggression. The ability to narrow yourself to a single operational point while everything around you vibrates at a frequency designed to produce panic. It starts 18 months before this moment, in a gymnasium in the American South at 04:30 a.m. on a Tuesday in early spring. There are 61 of you. By day 4, there are 38. You are not told what you are being assessed for. The cadre do not explain the events. They simply begin them, and you either complete or you don't, and the ones who don't are driven somewhere in a van and are not spoken of again. You came from a Ranger battalion, 3rd deployment. You had a combat record that was considered, by the metrics the Army uses, exceptional. That record meant nothing here. On day 1, you fail a land navigation course, not because you were lost, but because you arrive 40 seconds late. 40 seconds. The cadre member who marks you failed does not look up from his clipboard. You understand in that moment that this system does not grade on curve. It does not grade on context. It does not grade on history. It grades on the moment in front of it. You slept 4 hours across the first 3 days. Not 4 hours a night, 4 hours total. They did not take your sleep from you violently. They simply gave you tasks that ran through the night, and by the time the tasks ended, it was morning again, and morning meant new tasks. The assessment lasts 22 days. You will not know until day 22 that you have passed. On day 21, you are so degraded physically that you are unsure of the year. You complete the final event by following the man in front of you because your own navigation has gone abstract. You are not ashamed of this. Later, you will understand it was part of the design. They are not selecting men who perform well rested. They are selecting men who perform on the far side of themselves. They tell you on the last day, not with ceremony. A man in civilian clothes shakes your hand and says you are being assigned. He tells you where to report. He does not tell you what you will be doing. He does not need to. By then, you had already decided you would die before quitting. That decision has not changed. The ascent. Isolation is not an event, it is a posture. You inhabit it so completely over so many years that you eventually stop identifying it as isolation and begin identifying it as simply the way you are built. This is the erosion completing itself. You live in a rental apartment 20 minutes from the base. The apartment contains a bed, a table, a chair, and operational equipment in various states of maintenance and readiness. There are no photographs on the walls. You did not decide this. It is simply what the apartment is. You have lived there for 3 years. Your neighbors do not know your name. You do not know theirs. This is a satisfactory arrangement. 05/6. The shattering. The breach goes wrong. The door charge blows too heavy and takes out the wall. The detonation is larger than the calculation predicted. Later, you will determine the construction of the wall contained a non-standard material not captured in the structural assessment. 2 of your men are disoriented by the concussive overpressure. You can see them reorienting, can see the second and a half it takes their vestibular systems to reboot, and in that second and a half you have already moved past them because the hallway has 3 armed men and the target is not where the intelligence said he would be, and you are operating in the gap between the brief and the reality, which is the only place anything actually occurs. You make a decision in under 2 seconds. It is the right one in the operational sense, which means the mission objective is preserved and the majority of your team makes it to the exfil point with functional capacity. One of your men will not walk correctly for the rest of his life because of it. This is also a product of the decision. Both things are true simultaneously. The system's accounting will record only the first truth. You will carry both. You find the target in a basement. He is unarmed. He is sitting with his back to the wall. He looks at you the way people look at weather, not as an agent, not as a cause, but as a condition, something that is happening to him from outside any framework of fairness or intention. There is no fear in his face in the way you expected fear. There is just a kind of settled recognition. He has been waiting for you, or for someone like you, for a long time. You can see that he is not surprised. You have your orders. You execute them. This sentence takes 3 seconds in the operational timeline. In the documentation, it will occupy a single line. You have written and read that single line dozens of times in dozens of after-action reports, and it has never changed in form. That consistency, which should feel like clarity, instead begins to feel like a mechanism designed to prevent certain questions from forming. On the way back to the exfil point, you do not speak. Neither does anyone else. The helicopter noise fills the silence, but doesn't replace it. You sit across from the man whose leg is bound in a field tourniquet, and you look at the floor of the aircraft. You do not look at him. He does not look at you. The looking away is mutual and deliberate, and somehow the most human thing that happens on the flight. The realization does not arrive as a rupture. It arrives in the after-action debrief, in a climate-controlled room at a base 3 days after the operation. A man you respect is presenting the operational outcomes. He uses precise language, measured language, language that has been approved by the same legal architecture that governs everything else in this system. And as he speaks, you understand, not for the first time, but with a finality you cannot reverse, that the language is constructed to make the system's actions accountable without making them answerable. These are different things. Accountability is procedural. Answerability is personal. The system is accountable. No one inside it is answerable. You are inside it. You have been inside it for 11 years. You do not say this in the debrief. You answer the questions asked of you. Your answers are accurate. You are dismissed. You drive back to the apartment 20 minutes from the base, and you sit in the parking lot in your car for a period of time you do not measure, and you understand that something has settled in you that will not unsettle. It is not a crisis. It is quieter than a crisis. It is an inventory, arriving late, of what the last 11 years have cost and what they have produced, and whether those 2 columns bear any relationship to each other. You do not arrive at a conclusion. Conclusions require a belief that the accounting is completable. You no longer have that belief. What you have instead is the car, the parking lot, the light at 2100 going gray at the edges, and the knowledge that tomorrow morning at 0530 you will return to the work. Because because the work is what you know how to do, because the alternative is a life you have not maintained. You separate from the unit at year 14, not because you were forced out, because the knees are no longer a documentation issue, they are a physical fact. The separation is administrative, the same as everything else. A form is submitted, a date is set. On the last day, your team lead, a different man now, the first one having retired 3 years prior, shakes your hand in the hallway. He says 2 words, you say 2 words. That is the extent of it. You collect your personal items from your workspace. Your workspace is clean because you have never maintained it otherwise. You drive away from the installation at 16:20 on a Wednesday. The gate guard waves you through. He does not know this is the last time. The unit does not pause. You understand this clearly, and you understand it is correct. By the time you reach the highway, the operations cell is running a new package. By the time you reach the apartment, a replacement has been assigned to your team's TOE. By the time you are sorting the accumulated mail of 14 years of irregular presence, most of it irrelevant, some of it from your son, none of it answering the questions you have developed over 14 years, that replacement is already in the training cycle. He is 26 years old. He came from a ranger battalion. He does not know what he is being assessed for. He will not quit. The system does not require you. It never did. This is not a failure on your part, and it is not a betrayal on the system's part. It is simply the designed condition of an organization that must persist beyond the tenure of any individual within it. You were useful, you were used, you were replaced. These 3 things are not judgments, they are the operational sequence. You knew the sequence when you shook the man in the gymnasium and agreed, by the gesture, to begin. Your son is 15 now. You call him on a regular phone from the apartment on a number you have finally changed in all the relevant documentation. He talks to you about school, about a sport he has taken up, about a girl he is not yet willing to describe in detail. You listen. You are better at listening than you were at any prior point in your life, which is one of the things the 14 years produced, though you were not aware it was being produced. You listen, and you do not offer the kind of advice that comes from certainty, because certainty has left you, and what has replaced it is something quieter and more durable. No one will ever know your name in connection with the operations you ran. That is the point. That is what you signed up for. You are still not sure if that makes it better or worse. You have stopped expecting to resolve that question. You take a position with a consulting firm that works in security risk assessment. The work is similar in structure to what you did before: target analysis, threat modeling, decision support, but it occurs in daylight, in offices, at a pace that allows for sleep. You are competent at it. Competence is what you have to offer. The men you work with respect you without knowing anything specific about what you did before. You do not enlighten them. The specifics belong to a category of information you will carry until you cannot carry anything. You run sometimes in the mornings on a path that follows a river near the apartment. The knees permit this if the pace is controlled. You run at 05:30, the same hour you reported for 14 years, because the body does not unlearn its rhythms as easily as the mind unlearns its certainties. At 05:30, in the gray before full light, the path is nearly empty. An older man walks a dog on the far bank. A woman runs in the opposite direction and nods as she passes. The river continues at the pace rivers continue. Somewhere, at a base you drove away from, a man 26 years old is carrying a target package to a table at 2 o'clock because the operation brief is at 5 o'clock. He has been in the unit for 7 months. He does not yet know the cost of the thing he has agreed to. He will learn it the way you learned it, incrementally, at intervals in the dark, through the accumulation of moments that the documentation records in single lines and the body records in its own more durable language. You know this because you were him, and someone before you was him, and someone before that, someone else. The selection process continues, the training cycle continues, the target packages continue, the helicopters continue. The 30 seconds from the compound, the pilot calling out the vehicles on the eastern wall, the team lead saying nothing, the rifle checked one more time, all of it continues, and will continue, and requires no particular man to make it so. The river this morning is the same color it was last week. The older man's dog has found something at the water's edge and is occupied with it. You run past.
You do not break stride. The path ahead is visible for about a quarter mile before it bends. You run toward the bend at a controlled pace, aware of your knees, aware of the light shifting, aware that what lies around the bend is simply more path, and that this is sufficient, and sufficient is a condition you have only recently learned to inhabit without argument. You run.